Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I am your host, AP Strange. This is my show. Tonight's show is brought to you by Breton's Exquisite Corpse Display Cases. Just so you can display your exquisite corpses in style. They come in the rotating variety, but they also just come in the regular stationary Exquisite Corpse Display Case variety, so that you can drink the new wine and appreciate your exquisite corpse in style. So tonight on the show, we're going to be talking exquisite corpses, I bet, at some point, but we're also generally talking art and weird and paranormal stuff. And this is a conversation I've been wanting to have for quite a while. And I'm glad that I got tonight's guest, Jay Shenk, on for it. I've known him for quite a while. He was one of the organizers and hosts of Pan Paracon online conference some number of years ago that I was happy to present at, and I've known him, on and off online through like Liminal Earth Group and a whole bunch of other stuff, and he's just a cool and really well spoken, knowledgeable guy about lots of things, but particularly art, magic, and the weird. So thrilled to have him on. So welcome to the show, Jay. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you for having me on. I've been wanting to come on for a while and talk about this stuff too, just because it's so fascinating. But with a build-up like that, I really hope it does come off as knowledgeable and interesting.
Well, I think you are, because I mean, I kind of threw it out there and I left it really loose. I'm like, let's talk about art and weirdness. And we kind of had vaguely planned months ago to do it, and I just kind of returned to it. But you sent me an outline of basic things that you'd want to cover, and I'm like, man, all of that sounds great. Like some of that I'm not even sure I know about. So this is going to be really cool.
It's we could start talking about it. I think the writ large for this, the unifying force on a lot of what I have to talk about is the Theosophists.
Mm-hmm.
And just the presence of Theosophy and the extent to which it was a really legitimately popular religion around the turn of the century and into the early 20th century, and how it's funny today because Theosophy still exists. You can still join the Theosophical Society, but it's just like people aren't aware of what an influential force it was
Yeah.
for artists and thinkers, from the late 1800s through the 20s, maybe into the 30s a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And while there's a lot to talk about on this, and I'm probably going to bounce around, where I land most, where I like to talk about this and where it really gets interesting, is talking about the surrealists.
Yeah.
So I think most people are familiar with the surrealists. You've seen some of the work of some of the famous guys, like everybody's seen Dali. A lot of people know Rene Magritte.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual nuts and bolts of how we got surrealism is really interesting to me, and the occult influence on that, and the paranormal and the supernatural influence is something. Because you have World War One, right? World War
Yeah.
One, terrible, terrible war, terrible conflict, completely destroys the European order, completely destroys kind of the Victorian era and like the principles of rationality and the idea that there was this social glue of, religiosity and moral principles and king and country and all of these things that were this framework holding European society together completely crumbles.
Yeah.
And this really has like a profound effect on a lot of people kind of grappling with this and coming to terms with this, where you see first the Dadaists rise out of the cabaret society and really wanting to, to some extent, the crudest way to put it is really giving the bird to the mores and the cultural
Yeah.
stylistic you know values of the day, and saying like all this was terrible, all this failed, all we need to tear all this down. And
Well, it was
then
like the punk rock of its time in some
it
ways.
was
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was very punk rock, very much just anti-establishment. And then you go into the earliest surrealists, with, you mentioned, the sponsor, Andre Breton, and
Hmm.
the surrealists, and they are really trying to piece together a new way of thought and a new way of seeing reality.
Yeah. Yeah. See,
And
I like to impress this upon people because surrealism, I was so into it when I was younger, and I feel like it informed a lot of my magical thinking. And then over the years, I'm just like, wait, no, this stuff is intertwined anyway. Like,
right, and that's, even when I first started reading about this, I'm like, even before I delved into it, I'm like, this is magical practice. This is the
right.
same kind of, whether you believe in the literalism of magic or the even, or just believe it in its psychological effects, it's still magic. It's still like, we're trying to do magic. We're trying to combine. What is the quote? They were going to combine the waking world and the dream world into a super reality where
Hmm.
there
That's
was
where surreal.
continuity. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
where the
where
term surrealism comes from, is
exactly.
super reality. And if you read, I think you're quoting from the original Surrealist Manifesto
Yes.
there. Yeah, and if you read that, you're like, this is really metaphysical, and it's actually a magical manifesto. This is actually changing the landscape of reality vis-a-vis our perception of it, but also like literally, like they literally meant that we're
Right. And that's
expanding
I
what's possible. Yeah.
it's fascinating, and I will tell you, having done several art degrees, you don't get that in your art history class. Even when you're
Right.
doing, it's like, okay, we're doing history of modern. They're not talking about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of burying the lead on that. But
Hmm.
I feel like right at that time, I don't know, I've become really interested in the turn of the century, from like the late like 1880s through the 20s, just at the amount of change that society went through, but also in a weird way that there was a real side by side belief in the supernatural and the paranormal, while we're also having all of these modern wonders that kind of are shaping even the world that we live in the 21st century, are coming together. The practice of spiritualism, which really took off after the Civil War in America, people hoping to contact, their deceased relatives on the other side, got another shot in the arm after the First World War.
Right.
So you had the same thing. But what's interesting on the media theory side of this is the telegraph, which was also kind of came into prevalence in the Civil War, was seen as supporting spiritualism. That this
Yeah.
was almost a proof that you have this invisible form of communication that spans great distances. Why can't we span from this world into the next?
Hmm.
And you move that into the 20s, where radio starts to take off.
Hmm.
And that's the same thing. There's a really good book, Haunted Media, by Jeffrey Scotts. I don't
Yeah,
know if you read
I've
that
heard
one.
good things. I haven't
That's
read it,
worth
but
the time
yeah.
to the audience, to everyone. That's worth the time. Scott's is a rationalist, but he does an excellent job discussing the history of all these things. And so you have again the radio makes people believe more in the supernatural. Even though this is a scientific thing, it's still the mysterious voices in the ether,
Hmm.
mysterious voices in the air. There was even Nikola Tesla thought he was hearing voices from outer space.
Yeah. Mars
And
specifically, I
Mars
think, right? Yeah.
specifically, I
Yeah.
think the explanation today is that he was hearing natural radio waves that we
Hmm.
pick up from like radio telescopes like Arecibo and stuff. But it was this kind of, to me, like this charged atmosphere. You
Hmm.
know, you have the Theosophists who are really bringing in the Eastern religious practices and mystical practices and popularizing those in the West. And all of this stuff is happening, you know, hand in glove. Uh, Another kind of niche interest of mine that is still practiced today, but nobody really talks. It's not big in weirdo circles. The idea of radionics was,
Yeah. I saw your note about this, but
yes,
I was like, wait, I'm not sure I know what that is. So please let us fill that out for us.
radionics is the idea essentially of scientifically detecting and manipulating these unseen energy forces. And um, these are things that would be analogous in religious sense to like prana or ki, or these type of energies that are associated again with Eastern religions. But in the West, you have a couple people who say they can detect these things, and they called it eloptic energy for is one form of it, and they were creating these machines again that were this is in, you know, the era of electricity, so you're plugging in this machine but you're manipulating these settings to create this effect. And it was a, for the practitioner, it was a healing effect. You know, the first person that was really popularized this was trying to be a doctor. He had Aldous Huxley was a devotee of this.
Okay. Yeah.
And it, you know, obviously today it's treated as quackery, or it's treated as you know, a pseudoscientific thing. Although it also had a recharge. And this is right. This is where I bounce back and forth. It kind of had another shot in the arm in the 50s with the Hieronymus device. I don't
Hmm.
know if you've heard of that. There's an inventor with the fantastic name of Galen T. Hieronymus,
That is a great
who,
name. Yeah.
it is, right? I wish I was a Galen T. Hieronymus, but he invented this device that was a material analyzer.
Hmm.
And he, in testing it, he sent it off. This is God, when you start getting into this stuff, you know, everything is connected. These are, he sent it off to one of the guys that used to write for, this is, my brain is dying. Who published the Shaver Mysteries?
Oh,
What
Ray Palmer.
Right. It was one of the guys that wrote for Ray Palmer's things. And the guy, this author, and this is again, I should have, this is where I'm a little bit, I'm unprepared on this. I
Was it
apologize.
Curtis Fuller? Maybe.
Maybe I will look, I have to look this up. If you do
Okay.
show notes, I'll have it ready for the show notes.
All right.
Basically saying like, you don't need your machine. You don't need to plug this in. I drew it out on a piece of paper and
Hmm.
followed the same kind of it had like, it's like a touch sensing thing where you move the dial until you feel feedback, and you move your fingers over a touch plate until you feel friction. He's like, this is magic.
Hmm.
You've stumbled onto some form of magic, which we will circle all the way back to this at some point in this conversation. This is what we've talked about. The paper I wrote on this. This is
Yeah.
I bring it all back in. But you need this highly charged atmosphere where these Frenchmen are deciding we need to magically recreate reality. And they
Right.
use some of these techniques, like Breton. And before we get to, I know we always think of the surrealists as painters. They were surrealist authors. They
Oh, this
used
poets originally. I
poets,
mean,
right?
Breton was more of a poet. Yeah,
And they used automatic writing
yeah,
as part of their technique, derived directly from the spiritualist practice of the time.
mm, yep,
Um, a lot of the notions that were coming, people being exposed to through Theosophy, particularly the idea of projecting one's thoughts outside the body. We have that infamous story with the tulpa.
hmm,
Um, we created the tulpa and then it has to be destroyed. But the notion that that's possible was highly influential to the thinking on this. And you get this is an interesting book. You get C.W. Ledbetter writing
yeah,
two books, Man Visible, Invisible, and Thought Forms.
hmm,
And Man Visible and Invisible is about seeing the aura, seeing this energy field, and the thought forms are him literally saying with concentration, I'm applying my theosophistic principles to meditation and focus. I can see shapes that are representative of the thoughts of somebody.
yeah. Now,
And
Thought Forms was co-written with Annie Besant, right?
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Ledbetter himself.
we're talking second generation Theosophy here, where
Yeah,
it's this is post Blavatsky. She's been dead for like 20 years at this point. So yeah,
that's true.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
I think for
Just
a
for
lot of
clarity.
people, just for clarity, yeah,
Yeah,
this is less about the seventh race of, yeah, it's more about
right.
it's more about practice than it is about her lineage and Hyperborea and stuff. But the idea again that came through that in the idea of abstraction, that you could represent thought with abstraction, is really that that notion begins in art by being exposed to the idea from thought forms,
Hmm.
and people start painting with that.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. So you have a little earlier, you have Vasily Kandinsky, the Russian. uh, I arguably, if he's a surrealist or not, he was contemporary with a
Right. I
lot of
think
these
most people would
folks.
consider him abstract, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you know writing concerning the spiritual and art,
Hmm.
which is a book where he really tries to lay down, I don't want to say hard instructions, but kind of as to, you draw these shapes in these colors and it is representative of this spiritual truth. And if you use my system, we can create works of art that are inherently conveying spiritual truth through this
Okay.
language to the viewer.
Huh.
Right. Didn't take off, but still the ideas are there.
Yeah.
And everybody, I mean, different groups of people have their own approach. Some tend towards, some of the surrealists end up going towards abstraction, some end up sticking with a more, I say, like Magritte and Dali were like the realist
Hmm.
surrealists, doing
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
that's
Some would
representative.
argue, some would argue more commercial surrealists as well. They're very good at
Yeah,
capitalizing on it.
I think man, at the end of the day, that's one of those things that if we talk about it long enough, I'll become Gnostic. I'm like, at the end of the day, victims of a material universe, like, you gotta eat, and you gotta sell a painting if you want to too, if you want to eat, and that's just unfortunately
Yeah, yeah,
were we to exist only in the realm of pure thought, maybe we could get away with being a little less commercial. But, well,
right.
Dolly was the worst. Like, as a person, terrible
Yeah.
human being, um, ruthlessly, aggressively self-promoted, and
Yeah.
his work really had, as the kids would say, he fell off pretty heavily at the end. Like, the
Hmm.
later era stuff is really just like he was churning it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
and just really hoping it would just be like, hey, it's a dolly, buy it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's really a thing. But it's interesting how that stuff bounces around into, the later era of abstraction, when we're talking about some of those painters that came up in the 50s and 60s were influenced by these guys starting this out. And even still, there's an influence in Kandinsky and Saul LeWitt. There is really some kind of like not literal supernatural influence, but there is a real heavy, like, the painting as a portal to another frame of consciousness. We don't mean it necessarily magically. We just want you to think about it that way,
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But it is interesting to map out all the connections to me
Right. Right.
on this, because you bounce back again. There's a group of, again, the surrealists were also influenced by Eliphas Levi, who was writing in the later half of the 1800s, kind of, again, bringing a newer take on Hermeticism
Hmm.
to authors. Like, he had his own take on a lot of the classical magic doctrine that ended up influencing people, because it was a little more loose. He was talking about being filled with like the astral light of God and channeling that out into your workings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, more so. And that, uh, there's a meta theme of this, like, of energy, and this abstract energy flowing into and through the art as well as through the science of the day.
Hmm.
That's really interesting. And those things like keep intersecting at that time. Of course, arguably, you didn't really necessarily, they didn't really manage to create a whole new reality, unfortunately.
Well,
I
maybe they did.
Maybe they did. I think they gave us, I think they gave you the keys to do it if you want to go down that
Yeah.
path. Because the
Right.
guy, couple people, one artist in particular I think about, somebody that I you introduced me to, is Doc Shiels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Doc, I feel like Doc Shiels was about that life.
Yeah. He lived it. So everything he did was art. All the cryptozoology stuff, all the magic stuff was all art to him. So
And it was, and he was that guy that blurred the lines between, he was an artist and he was a stage magician, but he was also a real magician.
yeah.
And he was really irreverent about
Hmm.
his practice and stuff. Kind of never let you really know where he stood on it.
Yeah.
But that's what made him, that's what made it work, I
Yeah.
think.
And
And
if you
that's
read,
what
yeah, if you read his book Monstrum: A Wizard's Tale, I don't know if you ever read that
I
one, but
have that. I did read that. Yes.
fantastic. Yeah, because he gets into Max Ernst,
Right.
and Max Ernst's like totem character, like the weird bird creature that I forget the name escapes me. I can't think of
Oh,
it
it's
now.
right on the tip of my tongue
Lop Lop.
too. Yes.
Yeah. And like the kind of weird material reality that Lop Lop had to Ernst outside of the art, that maybe he wouldn't have admitted to so much.
Right. Well, that comes back. I feel like that brings me into like the other thing. I feel like everything comes back to um The Trickster and the Paranormal, which is
Yeah.
probably the most informative book I've read on that, because you talk about like the taint of the supernatural, and that you
Hmm.
can't really tell people that you have, like, oh yeah, I have a totem that materializes
Yeah.
and follows me around. You end up like Peter Sellers. You end up, people are like going to put you away because you're seeing Harvey the Rabbit.
Right.
And,
Right.
that's how. So you're like, yeah, I probably should keep that to myself. But with the surrealists, they were looking for that. I mean, a lot of the other things that informed them were quote unquote primitive societies. I don't believe in the label of primitive for
Hmm.
tribal societies that are, we're saying people that are tribal and animist,
Right.
and that those folks do, and this is talked about in Trickster in the Paranormal, live in that continuous reality. Like there's no, for like the Australian Aborigines, there's no real separation between the world and the dream time. A lot of
Right.
these things, like the supernatural, is a lived reality that is accepted and
Hmm.
part of their lives. And, I was thinking about this earlier today. You go to a museum, usually natural history, you'll see shamanic masks.
Yeah.
But it's like, and we say, oh, these are the art of these people, that those were also tools to access that super reality.
Hmm.
You know, not, and this is what I think the difference is not everyone can do that in a tribal society. The shaman is called and initiated, and there's a whole sort of doctrine on that.
Right.
Like this is how it goes. And I think the surrealists were trying very hard to self-initiate and get some of
Right.
that
Or
back.
yeah, it almost hand you a pair of sunglasses through which you can have a different view of reality that puts a different spin on everything that you're looking at. Because um, much like a shaman, like the mask is the spirit that you're inhabiting when you do the dance around the fire or whatever. When you're that shaman character. Um, because I mean, surrealism, the key to it is that every singular object has a multiplicity of meaning that changes based on the perspective of who's looking at it. And it literally becomes the thing that it represents as well. If you can get your head around that, you mentioned being Gnostic. That's kind of a
Yeah.
Gnostic take as well, or a Neoplatonist one anyway, where you're looking at forms and shapes and meanings that are imbued through it, which is like being able to poke your head into the super reality for a second, see the hidden connections between things. Um,
It's it's
it's
tough to do.
mystical.
It's mystical. I
Yeah.
think the two tools that I like for that, I like I like the chaos magic approach, where I'm
Hmm.
going to adopt beliefs and practices ad hoc as needed to accomplish whatever I'm trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
And that really lets you see the form the way you need to see it, right in the now.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
second, and the other one, this is from another book. This is from Sex Secrets of the Black Magicians Revealed by
Oh,
Ramsey Dukes. Have you read that one?
no, I've heard of it. Ramsey
Okay.
Dukes is great, though. I've heard
Ramsey
interviews
Dukes is
with him,
great. I
and
mean, this
yeah,
is for the very young in the audience, this would be considered like a proto clickbait title. It has nothing to do with sex. The
he has a
secrets
great
are,
sense of humor for
yes,
those that
there's
are
there's no
familiar with
black magic.
him.
But he has this quadrant, kind of like, you see like the political quadrant, where he's got religion, science, magic, and art broken down. And then there's overlap. So like there's intuition, thinking, sensation, and feeling. So art is a feeling and intuition. Magic is a feeling and sensation. Science is a sensation and thinking. Religion is an intuition and thinking.
Hmm.
And he talks a lot about thinking like a magician.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good to kind of have that as a mental toolbox, where I'm going, I need to think like a magician now. I don't need to necessarily think I had to fix the toilet this weekend. I don't need to think like I'm a magician, then, at least to start out with.
Hmm.
By the third trip to the hardware store, I'm like ready to seek um guidance and assistance
Yeah.
from the other
Petition the
world.
gods
I'm
to.
petitioning the gods, imbuing my wrenches with great important, imports. I like wield
Yeah.
I wield this crescent wrench like Excalibur now to
Well, yeah. I
smite
mean,
the smite the dragon of these tank bolts that won't come off.
right.
Yeah, so but that's the same. That's the thing. It's with one task. I'm starting out in a rational, scientific way, and then depending, it's just like, well, let's talk about how it goes, and it just goes
Right.
to, yes, we need to petition unseen forces to get this done.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people get there when they're desperate and find that they get results when they turn to an unseen force and an unseen supernatural force, and in the funniest ways. Like it can happen in really unexpected and funny ways, um,
I
and
I
unabashedly just claiming it. I think like claiming it, the act of claiming it helps. Like at a certain point, I just started unabashedly calling myself a wizard, and I don't care what people think about that. And I think
That's
that
how
there's
you
a
become a
power to it,
wizard, though. That's
Yeah,
again, I sort of I've tried to do that. I have You've heard of the New York wizard, the person is awake guy.
yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah, that's kind of how he did it. Now he did a lot of drugs too, but he did a lot of drugs and said he was a wizard and became a wizard that way.
right,
And I think the key is to me is to be able to switch into wizard mode when you're not under stress. You're not trying to torque a bolt off. It helps then, but you can do it. You can do it, on your own before that. You can
oh
try
yeah.
to
No, I'm a
channel
wizard
that.
24/7. So
Yeah, that's good. And I do feel like a lot of the things I learned, because I'm not going to be initiated, like I'm not having like the call, but you can just, I think like with the surrealist and reading about Doc Shiels, you can kind of get there yourself if you decide to get there.
yeah, yeah,
But I do think some people are called. I do think Howard Finster, good example. I
yeah,
think a lot of
yeah.
outsider artists are called. For the folks that don't know Howard Finster was what they call an outsider artist, which means somebody that didn't go to art school. He did not receive formal training, and he was not part of the gallery critic industrial complex
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
kind of propels and drives the art world. He was a guy that was possessed of I think, a degree of religious, I don't want to say mania, but religiosity that most of
Hmm.
us um, don't feel. And he was just compelled to paint all the time. And he felt like he was delivering the Lord's message and the Lord was moving through him.
Hmm.
And he did his stuff again has a surreal element to it because it's really primitive pictures of people, but there's angels flying around them. There's biblical verses, but there's also UFOs
Right. Yeah.
and shooting stars and a bunch of other really strange stuff
Yeah. And he kind of
that
fits in
have.
like scripture and text, like in the margins or in parts of the picture and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel like Howard was just dialed into it. I don't think
Yeah.
he just he was one of those people that was just had it intuitively to a higher degree.
Yeah.
That's
Like a mystical savant. But
mystical, exactly. He was a mystical savant to the degree where he saw the ghost of Elvis.
yeah. Yeah.
So
So
what would
yeah, you
we
got to talk about this. Yeah.
Okay, so when I worked during the Great Recession. I was a security guard at the Akron Art Museum, and one of the big shows we had at the time was Howard Finster, and at this was before show open because I was just up in the gallery, mostly by myself to keep people out before they were supposed to be in there, and the collector and curator of the show was up there, and I didn't even really know who that was. I just was like, hey, and talking to this guy, and he's like, oh yeah, and he knew Howard. He got
Yeah.
a lot of stuff from him when he was alive, and talked to him. And he was talking about Howard being out, he's working on Paradise Gardens,
Hmm.
which and folks, in addition to being a painter, tried to build heaven on earth. It's called
Okay.
Paradise Gardens. He was also kind of he was a sculptor. I think the only training he had
Where
outside
where
of being a preacher was being a woodworker. So he did know how to build some stuff.
where was this? Was this in Ohio?
No, no. I mean,
Uh,
it's in Ohio. Paradise Gardens is down south.
okay.
He is a southerner. I think Paradise Gardens still exists and you can go there, but yeah, Paradise Gardens is in Georgia, in Somerville, Georgia. And yes, it is still,
Okay.
I just looked it up. You can still go there at some point. We all must make a pilgrimage to Paradise Gardens.
Yeah.
And and he's out there working in Paradise Gardens, and Elvis appears before him.
Hmm.
Just he's right there. And this is Howard, though. Okay, Elvis is like, Howard, I have something important to tell you. And Howard is just like, all right, hold on a second. Turns around for some reason. And he turns back to the king. And he's like, all right. And he's gone. And I'm like, you gotta, when the king shows up and says he's got something important to tell you, just listen.
Right.
Don't tell him, wait a minute. Don't, don't be like, oh, well, I don't know. Let me get a notebook, like
Right, right. Gotta write
focus.
this down. Yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah.
king doesn't wait for anybody,
No,
but
he doesn't.
he's
And
got business to take care of.
he does. He's like, Howard, he's just like, I don't have time for this. I am going to I gotta move on with this. So, and I guess he never came back. I was really hoping, as secure, I was like, did he come back? Did Elvis ever be like, okay, I took care of across the cosmos, check this off my to-do list. Now I guess I can go back and try to get Howard's
Right.
attention again. But at some point, there's another great but little known weirdo guy, fellow by the name of EJ Gold. He's
Wait,
still
wait, wait. I don't
alive.
want to get off Finster
I
that
don't want to
quick.
get Finster. Okay, we're going to talk about Elvis though. We'll get
All right.
back to this, but okay,
Okay.
talk about yes. And Howard just the only thing though that I also know about Howard that is kind of does make me feel like he does have a connection with surrealists that's entirely unintentional because a lot of those folks were great imbibers of alcohol and drugs, and Howard was teetotal, but Howard would take handfuls of Folgers crystals and just eat them to keep
Wow.
going, to keep his energy up, and to keep painting. And he was just wired on caffeine,
Well, I
Coca
think you
Cola.
also, I think you also told me at one point that he was in not very well ventilated areas with
Yeah, I
paints that aren't.
realized that. I did realize that. Being a rural American, I real a lot of what Howard uses in medium. He didn't use oils. He used tractor enamel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, so Howard was definitely fuming himself out, the acetone and the much like the shaman of the shamans ingesting the psychedelic plants, or the libertine surrealists drinking their absinthe. Howard was ripped to the gills on acetone fumes and caffeine, at least some of the time. And
Amazing.
helped him pick up those radio signals from beyond
Right.
a little bit.
And the light of God that
And the light of God, channeling that
Eliphas
light of
Levi
God.
talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Howard would have liked Eliphas Levi because he was a wizard, but he would have said he was channeling the light of God in all his work. So
Right.
yeah,
There you go. Well,
it's
so how was Finster discovered though? Who found him if he was such
um
an being an outsider?
Howard ended up getting discovered by a couple of these art collectors.
Okay.
And Howard he was doing this stuff and he was giving it away. And
Okay.
just on a trip, somebody found out about this, and then he got famous to the point where he did that Talking Heads album cover,
Mhm.
did the REM album cover. He was on the Tonight Show with when Johnny Carson was still host of the Tonight Show.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay.
Yeah, Howard. No, this was another one. This was an ongoing little conflict with some of the museum staff. We had Howard's part of Howard's Johnny Carson impression on a loop, and Howard does a little dance, like he does a jig on
Okay.
Carson, and it was the staff that were in charge of the exhibits would turn that up super loud. And
Uh,
then you'd hear Howard doing his jig on Carson, like echoing, and we would turn it back down. And I really, this was kind of before pre-flash mob, pre big social media. It's like everybody, all the guards, I was like, we all got to get downstairs in the main lobby and do the Howard jig before this goes off you. We never managed to coordinate that, but it was
yeah.
like, yeah, we're all gonna do the Howard jig.
Yeah. I'll have to look
Yeah.
that up. Yeah.
No,
All
it's
right.
it's good. And his family is still making. He ended up. He got so popular with selling so many prints and so many things that he enlisted the extended family as
Mhm.
kind of his own little art factory. And
Oh,
for a while there, they were still making his stuff. And
wow.
I think some of it is still out there.
Did he get paid well for doing rock album covers, or did he
I
get like a
think
one?
he did.
Yeah.
I think he did all right for that. He did. This is kind of the how it goes is you get discovered by the gallerist and the collectors, and you can finally start making some money, even though they're gonna take a cut of that. But yeah, there's still some stuff for sale of his, even on the website,
Yeah.
prints and
Well, I only
stuff.
asked because
Yeah,
there are those album cover artists that famously got burned. They got like a little bit
yeah.
of money for like a one down payment, and that's it. You know.
I think Howard did all right.
Yeah.
You can actually. Oh, here's another one. I have a vacation planned for you. You can go stay at Vision House where God came to Howard and told him to paint.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a
We'll
thing.
see
You
if
can
God.
book that.
Yeah, if God has any words for me, that'd be nice. I can
Yeah,
go there and
just
find out. Or
just
Elvis.
or Elvis. They
Yeah.
could just be like, AP, we love the show. That's it. You might just get it might be very simple.
That'd be fine. You know?
I I want to ask Elvis about it. And this is where I was
Yeah.
going to make that digression. There's another weirdo, lesser known guy, EJ Gold. I like this guy a lot. He's he thinks you can kind of picking up on the Tesla note before, he thinks you can communicate with other dimensions with crystal radio.
Okay.
And he also makes he's hired a guy to make, I don't want to call them games even though they use game engines, but one of them is a seance with Elvis.
Hmm.
And I got this. It was like $7. So
Okay.
I am going to try to do the seance with Elvis and ask him what he had to tell Howard and see if he'll talk to me through
Nice.
the EJ Gold app.
So it's an
See where
app that
that
you can
goes.
get?
It runs on a Windows computer. Yeah,
Wow.
it's not a phone app, but yeah, it's like you can download a seance with Elvis.
So it doesn't work on Mac. Is there a Mac version?
I don't. I There might be. I have to look. I have to
Yeah.
look
All
because
right.
he's
Yeah. It's
because
not
I
really
don't know.
on you to
We
tell
should
me.
do
I can
this.
find
This
out.
is
Yeah.
you need to get. I feel I should have told you about this much earlier, but you can get out on a seance. Maybe you can have Elvis on the show. I don't know. EJ is
Yeah.
pretty honest. He's like, I don't know if you'll get him or not. We're
Okay.
calling him. I don't know if you'll get him.
All right. Well,
So
you described him as a weirdo. What else is he known for? Like an artist too,
he's an
or
artist too. He
yeah,
is an
yeah.
artist. He wrote the American Book of the Dead, kind of again with this whole continuity of Tibetan spirituality.
Okay, I've heard of
He was a
that.
60s hippie.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Um, does a lot of his art kind of tied in with the radionics stuff we've talked about. Viewing, he's an invisible energy guy,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Sounds great.
he's still around. He's still alive. He's a pretty old guy now. He's still blogging, but
All right.
it's an interesting little digression, but it might be worth it to try to talk to Elvis.
Okay. Well, I did have the one encounter with Elvis in a meditative trance at one point. It was actually fairly similar to Howard's encounter because I don't remember what he said. He said something to me and I could not remember it later. Yeah.
The wisdom of the king will be revealed in due time. It'll be there when you need it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's just there. But tying into that, when I was doing research on this, I took a course at the Ryan called Art as
Okay.
Psi. I said that very quickly.
Yeah.
They still offer it, although it is different now than when I
Hmm.
took it. I took this like in 2002. Um,
Okay.
and I ended up doing the paper I wrote was a research on this, tying this into radionics and dowsing again, because the idea with I think there's two schools of thought on dowsing. One is that it's coming, you're channeling it from within. One is that you're receiving it from without. But and this applies to Howard in his process too. And a lot of these outsider artists who are just motivated to do this, I think the creative impulse, the creative process when you're going through something and making your decisions is akin to dowsing. I think
Okay.
you are, at least for me in visual art, and I actually realized this when you were doing your talk. I did that poster for you,
Right. Right.
monsters,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was
The
thinking of,
UFOs
yeah,
and bug-eyed monsters. Yeah.
yes, okay. I couldn't tell you why I did what I did. Just
Yeah.
did it. I sat down and was kind of that was all software based, and just went. And I feel there are those points, and I feel there's more to it. I think there is. You take the human capacity for symbolic thought, which is really what differentiates us from a lot of creatures, with a couple exceptions in the animal kingdom. You take there are psychological rules of perception that were investigated and studied by Rudolf Arnheim. This is the beginning of Gestalt psychology.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if you're too familiar with Gestalt. Um,
Only vaguely. Yeah. I never read into
Gestalt
it too
in
deeply.
the most basic element of Gestalt is that this is our brains associate things. That
Hmm.
really, if you put these two things together on a thing, if I move them close together, they become a group. If I move them far apart, they're no longer a group. That is a psychological, I don't want to say decision, but that is a psychological mechanism that decides that.
Yeah.
When you think about it objectively, there's nothing to say that even two objects on a plane are close together, they're a group, but we decide that. And there's a lot of it was very it's something that has operated in the human mind for millennia without being studied, very deeply unconscious. And you take these things, these symbolic thought and the Gestalt psychology that is these are built into our minds. Every human has this, and then you're just making your decisions, kind of like you're searching, like they say, like searching for water. I'm searching for the right decision. I'm searching for the right image or the right combination of things, and I know it when I see it, which is
Hmm.
what. And I realized this in doing. Now I'm on my third studio art degree. I did
Yeah.
bachelor's in fine art, bachelor's in graphic design, doing my master's in digital right now. You can teach. process in terms of this is how you run software, or this is how you render with a pencil or render with paint. But to actually get good at art, you just have to do it and hone it. And you'll get a like, oh, it's the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, which I think is kind of hokum. It's You're like, what are you honing? You're
Yeah.
honing your intuition. You're
Right.
honing that ability to dial in to whatever this is that's helping you decide that what you're doing is right. And
Mhm.
I think guys like Finster, I think a lot of these outsider artists, they just get that directly.
Yeah.
It's
And I mean, to
just,
your point with radionics, it's like some people have described it as like moving the radio dial until you hit the right one. And now you
mm-hmm.
got that transmission. It's a lot like channeling, or wherever the muse moves you, but
Yeah,
thinking of it as a form of dowsing is really cool because um, you're guiding yourself there. It's not an extra personal force that's moving you. It's kind of you guiding yourself, which is really kind of cool.
I think so. I think that is
Well, it's
just,
probably both, but
I think this is one of those. I mean, here are we, the universe just experiencing itself. You
right.
know, the mind determines what reality is. So this is it's both it's effectively the same thing.
Hmm.
I kind
Yeah.
of think that a lot about, again, a lot about the magical process of deciding um, you're a wizard. It's kind of the same thing. Is it psychological or is it really magic? Like, it doesn't matter. It's both. It's real anyway.
Yeah. It's both. It's neither. It's great. It's whatever.
Yeah,
It's all
it's
of those
just
things. Well, it's like bring it back to Breton is one of my favorite phrases or statements that he made was it's impossible to concede any immediate meaning to reality since it might mean or represent anything at all. Uh, just the basic conceit behind surrealism. But
I
yeah,
I think that and it's one of those things. I think that's great. I know that really that kind of thing really troubles some people. I think when you get into scientism and rationality and you go too far and you become the amazing Randy
yeah, yep,
and
yeah,
you
for sure.
just
And you
get
don't know how to experience wonder or magic anymore. Yeah,
right. You're just
yeah,
kind of you do yourself in. You probably of course we also know too if you go too far in the other direction, if you're spending 100% of your time in super reality, you may run into some problems.
yeah, yeah.
So, you've got
Well, I was
I,
about to say Breton followed up that statement with talking about dashing into a crowd, firing a gun willy
yeah,
nilly.
I mean
So
we want to try to avoid that.
yeah,
I mean, I think that unfortunately, I'll argue that like kind of the relativism and some people seeing like the relativism of postmodernism being like the dark side of being that super reality. If you
mhm,
go, reality is anything I want it to be, so it's bad, or I can do whatever I want because you get a solipsistic viewpoint of like, oh, you know, we have that
yeah,
modern thing now where people are like NPCs,
right, yeah.
and I'm
And I
like,
think of it as just a low rent interpretation. I mean, it sounds elitist
it
for me to
is,
say, but it's the non-thinking man's version of
it is,
Gnosticism.
it is. It's like it's just like you got the Dollar General Gnosticism. That's not what we
Right.
want.
Well, you
That's
got by the pleroma, I guess.
yeah. And I think again that's why channeling it into art, and I say art writ large, poetry, writing, music, whatever you're doing, that's like I really after learning about Doc Shields through you and your show and really just I read his book and I read the one biography of his.
Monstermind.
Monstermind, yeah. And I'm
Yeah,
just like, see, this guy, maybe other than the heavy drinking, this guy had it figured out
right.
to a large extent.
Well, I'd also recommend Jonathan Downes' book on the Owl Man, because it kind of gives you a little bit more of an outside personal perspective of Shiels, because it's more a book about Shiels than it is the Owl Man.
Yeah. And and I think some of that, I also think a little bit that going to an art museum, looking at the surrealist, looking at abstract painting is kind of how you can microdose a paranormal experience or an encounter with the supernatural.
Yeah,
You,
absolutely.
you're
Yeah,
really confronted with this unknown reality and how you react to it, and you can sit with yourself and be like, how am I reacting to this, rather than just reacting like, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are really dismissive of a lot of
hmm,
that artwork reflexively. And if you can get past that and just be like, oh, I don't, this is like, I'm encountering the unknown, but you're encountering it in a safe place that has air conditioning in a gift shop,
yeah,
much, much better than just kind of having the unknown leap out of the bushes at you,
right.
going out for a smoke and having the alien encounter, or having the encounter with I'm in the woods and have the encounter with the Fae or whatever. That's a little more dicey. You
Right.
can kind of grapple with the unknown and simulate that experience just by going to see some art.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I think you're right. And I think that, from the creation of art to the appreciation of it, and the utilization of it in wider culture, it has a lot to tell us about the supernatural, the paranormal, and all these other subjects, because art is so much a participatory thing. And sometimes I think people will say they don't get it. It's like, well, just go sit with it for a while. Like, there's nothing to get. It's looking at it, and you don't have to understand it. You don't need an art degree to go look at a painting and tell me what you feel about it, right?
I've told people that that it's not like, if you can't explain what this painting's about to me by the time we close, you're trapped here forever.
Right. There's no
It's
test
not
at the
that
end
you're
of it
yeah,
either.
you're
Yeah.
not you're not in the Twilight Zone. There's no, like, everybody that can't pass the test has to work at the museum forever.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's I think that's a feature of some of art in the 20th century and beyond, is that a lot of art is about that direct communication of a feeling, and it's not about intellectually decoding symbols.
Hmm.
And people just, they're not, nobody gets really trained to do that. Um,
Yeah.
in a lot of our education. I mean, I think that's why even before I was a paranormal weirdo, I was an art weirdo. People just like, oh, you're weird because you're engaging with this, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, it's it's just another thing to engage with. You can, again, going to the toolbox with the quadrant, it's like, well, I'm engaging my mind this way. I'm in this quadrant now.
Hmm.
I don't have to be stuck in the scientism quadrant,
Yeah.
right? I don't have to be stuck in
Well,
one mode
increasingly,
of thought.
yeah, increasingly, it seems to me that, I mean, you can talk a lot about like neurodivergence and stuff becomes like the topic these days, and people, but I don't know if there's anybody that's necessarily non-divergent, because I think we're all very different from a perspective standpoint. But that being said, I think that there's a large degree of people that don't that think any exercising of the mind is like an abhorrent thing, and they'd rather not do it. So anybody that does is weird. And I mean, there are those of us that always have the impulse to either want to know more, to experience more, to create more, to learn techniques of how to create more. It's all exercising that gray matter muscle inside your head. Uh, you
It
know?
is. I
And
don't think we prepare people very well to do that. Uh,
yeah,
Another
but
book,
even still, when you're
yeah,
well, to your point earlier, like when you're younger and you're an art weirdo, and people are like,
yeah.
why are you doing art? Why would you want to do that? You know, and it's like when you're a child, like other children might think you're weird because you're the one doodling in the corner. I know that
I
was the
think,
case for me. Just,
yeah,
you know,
but that's I think what I said, we don't prepare kids well for that, because you should really be going like, what's, like, not antagonistically, but you should, like, what's your deal? Like, what's going on here? And you're like, I think we need to be more understanding that just because somebody's doing something a little differently, of course, isn't catastrophic.
right,
Like, nobody's gonna die because I'm doodling.
right, yeah,
If I was that powerful, you'd know it already.
yeah,
Um, if I had that kind of juice. But I also think, though, I'm reading another book right now, semi-related. I'm reading Temple Grandin's visual thinking book.
okay,
Okay, Temple Grandin is a designer. She's an industrial designer, and she has autism, and she is a visual thinker. So she thinks in pictures, and she is talking in her book about kind of how we mostly in society, we are a verbal society. We're verbal written society, even though we you might argue that we're moving away from that as literacy decreases, but that's kind of how our education system is currently set up. It's still to do that, and the visual and the verbal people really have a hard time communicating with each other because their
yeah,
modes of thought are so different. I learned a thing about this on myself because I did I'm verbal, I'm visual, but in visual terms, I'm an object thinker.
okay,
So I can visualize an object. Like
hmm
I really didn't realize, and this was another thing, I didn't realize people couldn't do this. When you say think of an apple, I can think of a particular apple I've seen in the past as long as I can remember it, or I can just think of, like, here's what an apple
yeah.
is.
I was about to say that there are people that can't just bring an image to mind when you mention it, but for me, I can't help it. I immediately get an image if somebody mentions
Yeah,
something.
I'm just
You
like,
know?
I'm
Yeah,
thinking like, yeah. And there are some people that I guess can do it, but in black and white, or there are some people that can only do it in 2D. There's gradations of it.
it's
Um,
crazy. Yeah,
and there's spatial thinkers who are the people that are really excellent at, like, kind of geography, mathematics,
hmm
that kind of really understanding, like, the spatial relations. And those are the people that are the really good computer programmers, which is, now I realize why I am struggling in all my programming classes. I am personally living the current Dr. Manhattan theme. Right? It's like,
right,
it's 1996. I'm trying to learn to code and struggling. It's
right,
2011. I'm trying to learn to code and struggling. It's 2025, etc.
yeah,
Um, and we don't talk about that in education. We don't talk about how to communicate with each other. We don't even
yeah,
tell people that. Like, some of you think in words, some of you think in pictures, and some of you think in abstracts. And we all have to kind of, there's value to all of these things, and we all have to learn how to get them together. That's, I think, a lot of the people that think you're weird because you're an artist are just like, I'm a verbal thinker, and I don't get this. And rather than that being okay, it's like, oh, I don't get this. It's the same thing with seeing the painting. It's like, I don't get this. I can't immediately decode this the way I
right,
could a realist depiction of, like, here's the schooner cresting the white
hmm
caps. It's like, God,
yeah.
I know what this is. Um,
Well, it gets
I
into a
didn't reach
question
for the
of
challenge.
aesthetics too, which I think is something that might apply to outsider versus insider art. Where
I've
sometimes you see
definitely.
people that like really gaudy things, and you're just like,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and you're like, what, why? Like, what you're looking at it like, I can't understand why you'd hang that on your wall. For me, that's like the live, laugh, love, like home goods variety of decor. But
Oh yeah.
Increasingly, what I'm seeing, it seems like a trend with people that like to just have an almost sterile environment where they have no art hanging on the walls. And that disturbs the crap out of me. If I walk into somebody's house and there's no art or pictures or clutter or
Yeah,
things, I'm like, well,
that's that's where I think I'm like, I hate to say it. I'm sure some of you have no art and are fine people, but that's like I get serial killer vibes from that.
yeah, I feel like I'm
I
in American Psycho or
I
something.
do. I was just about to say I am going to leave. I'm sure the Huey Lewis and the News albums are very good. I too have to return some videotapes, so I will I'm out. Yeah, it's weird because we do live in a primarily visual culture, and a lot of we love TV, we love movies. The kids love anime and manga.
Mhm.
We really have like the rise of memes on the internet as a serious course of study. I mean, there were the guys, and this was on the right, and I haven't read any of these books, but I do think about it, that we're talking about the meme magic
Mhm.
and kind of being literally talking about what we were doing before. Although again, you could argue like memetics is psychology. It is an infectious idea. It doesn't have
Right.
to.
That's where the term
Where's
comes from.
yeah, where's the line between magic and just psychology on that? But some people really believe that they were doing magic by posting,
Right.
and yeah, it's an interesting time. Unfortunately, it's mostly bad interesting.
Yeah.
Um, it's a period
Yeah.
that if the human race progresses, people will look back on this when they're reading it and just be like, ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, yeah.
It's kind of like where people talk about how history is going to look at this moment in time. And I'm like, history? Oof, you're optimistic.
I mean, when the aliens land and they're looking
Yeah.
at these, you know, like these people, and they'll find the remnants of a Bucky's and think the bronze beaver was our god and be like they worshipped the Bucky, and
Yeah.
you know,
So it's
but
really, yeah,
I
that's really funny because I used to live in Salem, Massachusetts, and there's a big statue of Samantha from Bewitched in the center of town. And I had a friend
so
visiting once. He's like, if there was ever like an apocalypse and like future humans came here and did an excavation, they would think this is like some kind of moon goddess that people worshipped and stuff.
one okay,
Yeah.
here's something I think about every day, and I this is like a paper I would like to do if I had the time to pull it all together. But I think about the mimetic transformation of the perception of the Mothman entity based on the decisions that one sculptor made.
Yeah.
Because you think about, have you been to Point Pleasant at all ever?
I haven't, but I think I know what
Okay.
you're getting at.
Okay. So
Uh,
in for the folks that don't know, in Point Pleasant, there that was where the Mothman sightings occurred. There's a Mothman museum. Outside the Mothman museum, there's a Mothman statue created by a local artist out of stainless steel. The artist decided as a reference to use a bodybuilder,
mhm.
and the pose of the Mothman, where he is kind of in a menacing, like lean forward. From the rear, he is, as again, as the youth would say, caked up. He's got generous glutes.
Right.
And I'm
The
thinking
moth ass
about
has become a meme in and of itself.
it's become a
Yeah.
meme, but it's
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this. So I will damage some of my cred. I really wasn't up on the Mothman until the Richard Gere movie came out.
Okay.
The I saw the movie. I My first copy of Mothman Prophecies was the movie poster trade paperback version of that. But
Yeah, same for me, actually. You know.
all right, I was genuinely chilled by the story reading it the first time, and
Yeah.
the implications of these beings in a higher reality kind of being able to observe things, and nature of space time. And now Mothman is a cute thing. It's
Yeah.
Mothman's juicy rear end. I see the perception of the entity is very cute. I see a lot of go to a event, a cryptid event. There's Mothman plushies and there's
Yeah.
stickers, and it's just like the entire perception of this creature has been transformed by the
Hmm.
decisions the sculptor made.
Hmm.
And this is where I'll be
Well,
like cocking the eyebrow, going, was he channeling, was he using the dowsing reflex, or was something beyond wanting to alter the perception of the Mothman? Did the Mothman have an extra dimensional PR team? Did the Mothman decide I'm tired of
maybe.
being an object of terror and I want to be an object of affection now?
Yeah, maybe it was the spirit of Gray Barker was subtly influencing.
Ooh, oh, oh my. Well, I think if that was true, the Mothman would definitely look a little less mature than he does
Oh,
in the current
ouch.
statue. Yeah, from what I think from recent revelations about Mr. Barker. But yes,
Yeah, but well, the statue though. I mean, the basic shape, like the monster shape that the sculptor used, was based also on the Frank Frazetta interpretation of
right.
Mothman. So, and not necessarily what was described in the witness accounts.
And that's just, that's Frazetta being Frazetta.
Right,
If you would have asked Frazetta to paint like somebody pumping gas, you would have had like this muscled barbarian
right.
um,
Yeah,
filling up their tank. It's just, but it's interesting again that art propagated through mimesis and became transformational into both the popularity of the Mothman and how people perceive it.
yeah. That would be a
I don't know.
fascinating study to do.
I have to sometime if I have a minute. Um, I just think about that is but it's just like what is he thinking about the Mothman's rear end in mimesis? Because people have when I went down there, people stick money in the crack.
Right. Yeah.
They leave
Yeah.
offerings. They burn incense. Like there was
Mhm.
incense when my first trip to Point Pleasant, 2021. There was incense burning behind the statue.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people are now
And people
it's
were leaving like cans of food too at one point, like
yes,
cans of
it's
beans or
cans of
something.
beans. Yes.
Yeah.
Um
I don't know that I understood that, but
I don't know the reference to the cans of beans either. That just happened to me. But
yeah.
it's just interesting. Again,
Well, here's something though. It's all shiny metal too, right?
it
So like
is.
you can kind of see your reflection in his butt.
You can. And they sell a magnet. I have a magnet on my refrigerator that says I touch the shining hiney, that is an official product that you can buy in their gift shop.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, they've decided to go with it.
But I guess like symbolically what I'm saying is that
Yeah,
we are all Mothman's ass, really.
we are.
So
The that's the I mean, eventually that will turn into channeling the super reality. It'll be like if you approach the Mothman's ass with an offering, your true self will be revealed in the reflection.
yeah. Well, I think we did it. I think we cracked the code.
I think we might have. You heard it here first, folks, on the AP Strange show. We did it.
I
Uh,
think we buried the lead. Now you can't even write that paper, you know?
you know what? People, people, it'll be one of those things. I'll do it anyway. It'll go on my blog, and it'll be like it's only the third paper up there because I had the energy and the motivation to fire two off, and then I don't know somehow the next 3 years happened, and I'm
Right,
just like I still need to get back onto this, but we'll get there at some point.
right, right. Well, time isn't real, you know. That's
It's
I think
it's it's
Mothman could teach us that much, yeah.
it's not, and yet,
And
uh,
yet.
yet.
Yeah, yet we keep getting older for some reason.
Yeah, or like I said, it's like I'm experiencing general relativity anytime I actually just want to get something done, and I'm like, I'm not enjoying the ride today. I want to get to the hardware store and get back. It's taking forever.
Right.
So yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if I just zoning out in bed watching Batman: The Brave and the Bold, which is my new favorite cartoon, I'm like, how's it midnight already? So
Yeah, it does feel that way. It always feels like it's time to go back to work too soon, you know? So,
mhm. But we can always I was reading for school biography of Edward Muybridge, who was
mhm.
the guy that did the first motion studies of the horse
Yep.
running,
Okay.
and they were trying to determine whether a horse's feet were all off the ground or not. But he really launched the motion picture industry, was birthed with that, and talking about freezing chunks of time in a
Yeah.
photograph.
Right.
So I don't know. We can freeze some chunks of time in a photograph. Hopefully, we can just kind of snap that time out later when we need it.
Yeah.
There's a magical thought for you.
Right. Yeah. Uh, um, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of ways I could go with that, but we have been going for a while, and I didn't want to go too
Yeah.
long, but
No.
I did want to ask you because I
Yes.
felt like bring jumping in with this a few times throughout the conversation, and then
Sure.
um, kept kept missing my chance. But when you're talking about like radionics and like the idea of technology and radio in particular, um, I think like during this early 20th century phase of discovering this stuff, I wonder about your thoughts with thinking of these invisible forces in terms of like waves uh and frequency like we do with radio, like um because I don't think it works that way, but I think
Okay.
that became the popular way to conceive of, say, telepathy, is that there's some kind of wave like signal traveling from one mind to the other, right? and
I
and, and
just
I, it's almost because it was simultaneous with the discovery of that stuff or around the same time.
And I
So
think I just thought, because I've been watching Batman cartoons, the way that's visually depicted with Aquaman's undersea telepathy radiating out from
yeah, the
his
circles coming
brow.
off his head that get bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've shown in the actual, if we're taking these seriously, which I do, going to some of the actual telepathy experiments with Ingo Swann and some of the studies that Dean Radin is still doing, it appears to be more instantaneous.
Right,
Not
exactly.
a, but I think that jibes now with some of the current concurrent experiments in quantum teleportation. We've
Yeah.
got an electron existing in two places at once.
Right. By
So
location,
I
really.
do think in that's I'm going to encourage everyone. I'm going to encourage you to read that book on haunted media, because
Okay.
that does really delve into that. A lot of these things are, I don't want to say recursive, but it's like a thing happens, we use a metaphor to describe it. Does the thing happen now conforming to that metaphor because we're all thinking it does that way? Or, there is,
Right.
or how
Yeah,
much
that's it.
influence on reality do we have? Are we making it so because it was an easy metaphor to understand radio waves, an
Right.
invisible projecting force,
Well, it's the
rather than
language
just the
that's
connection.
yeah, the language is ill equipped for some of this really anomalous stuff, and I think that it's misleading. And you basically just nailed what I was trying to get at. But yeah, when you're talking about like instantaneous communication, when you're talking about spooky action at a distance or quantum entanglement, I find that people get hung up on this where they're like, well, they seem to be communicating with each other, but also acting simultaneously. And like, how does the signal travel faster? I'm like, because there is no signal. They're the same thing. They're tied together somehow
Yeah.
and move in tandem. It's no like, hey, I'm moving over here now, so move over here.
I think
There, but we use the word communicate, and that's kind of what the drives the concept, and everybody gets stuck in this weird quagmire where we're mistaking the map for the territory. You know,
definitely some of that I think is the limitation of language. Some of that I think is kind of the particular limitation of English at times.
right? Specifically
Um,
English, yeah,
yeah, specifically English because it does struggle with nuance.
yeah,
Sometimes when we're talking about, when I'm talking like saying about this experience with a piece of art, I see some of those, and I say this jokingly and kindly, but you have like a really long German word for the particular feeling you get when you step off the train in the snowy late autumn and dusk, and they've made a
right,
word for that, and we're just like stepping off the train and feeling it and not even knowing what to call it or to call it anything.
right, yeah,
And I do think, yeah, I agree with you that there's a lot of things that the metaphor helps it helps you understand, but then it also binds you to that one way of thinking.
right, yeah, yeah, yep, and where it's simultaneously opening your mind and narrowing your scope, which
Yeah, because look, you said the radionics, they're talking about the transmission. That all happened. Everything in that happens. It just happens. It's the
right,
distance. It's the same thing. It's like distance is no object.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I was listening to somebody talk about remote viewing the other day, and it was, you had guys like Pat Price that would claim that they were picturing the target before they even walked into the room and got the coordinates that they were supposed to remote view. So they got it ahead of time, before they were even supposed to do it.
Yeah, or
So
or discussing remote viewing distant planets or remote viewing the past.
yeah, right,
Yeah, and there's no signal lag. It's not like I'm gonna view 2000 years ago. I got to wait half an hour for my brain waves to travel back in
yeah,
time. And it's just like I'm just doing it.
right. Yeah, because I mean, I guess if we're going back to the super reality, like time
Yes,
isn't really an issue, you know.
right. Yeah, once you access the super reality, I mean, Newtonian physics is really great for like making light bulbs and our belts and stuff, but there's like a point where it's like, we're in the super reality now. I do think a lot of I am a Dean Radin guy. I do think a lot of our problem is we just have we just like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. It makes me seem like a weirdo.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm observing. I pretend it's we're observing these things and then going, I pretend I do not see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can only kind of mention it as couched in, well, this is an anomaly, but I don't know what this is. There must be a mistake. There's,
Right.
the
Clearly
damned data, as Charles Fort would call it.
yes,
Yeah.
clearly, I mean, clearly we're seeing this, but it means nothing.
Yeah.
So, um, disregard.
Right.
Oh no, that's funny. I mean, I could talk about the roots of the causes of that. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, well, the Soviets being atheists took it a lot more seriously than we did.
Oh yeah, the Soviet experience. What was that? Psychotronics and
Yes,
stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, that's all fascinating stuff that I only vaguely know about.
I know a little bit about it. I mean, but again, it's like on in the East, it is a serious field of study. In the
Yeah,
West, it is Byron Ginson and Burroughs screwing around.
yeah,
Like that's the level of seriousness it's taken at.
right. Yeah, I mean, but all of this does tie together because you go back to the Dadaists with the cut up method, and that
Yep,
translates to Burroughs, which translates to Bowie, which gets into David Lynch, and like
it's all
other,
related.
there's a line of transmission with this like really kind of mystical stuff. And also juxtaposition and randomity, I think, are super important. And you're talking about like Batman cartoons, and I was talking about like Frank Frazetta and stuff like that too. We're talking about outsider art versus insider art. I think the mixture of the highbrow and lowbrow, as far as art forms are concerned, is kind of a super important factor to consider.
I really do too. I unfortunately, so not to be I'm not an anti-intellectual by any means, but I am a little bit anti the world of academia, because I feel like
Yeah,
the highbrow art ignores the visceral, which is ignoring a really key part of human experience.
a vital part, I would argue. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. And it just wants to dismiss it as like primitive and barbaric and not worth considering. But
right. Yeah,
again, you're cutting out. It's just like, well, we'll just cut out an entire really vital part of understanding like who we are as human beings, how we think, how we perceive, how we feel, what's derived of that. So I do have a little bit of it's like when people belittle the quote I it's like the quote unquote lowbrow, because I just enjoy things.
yeah,
You know, I enjoy the fine arts. I enjoy a Batman cartoon that's kind of, Brave and the Bold is great. It's one of those that's made for kids, but it's like your parents are going to be watching with you. And
yeah, yeah.
Batman is very kind of dry and acerbic to what everything is happening around him. And I'm like, this is my favorite interpretation of the character. Like he's got a lot of really funny asides in that show.
Yeah.
But it's
I'll have to do a
like,
whole episode on Batman someday.
yeah,
Just do like a deep dive on Batman and his cultural impact.
absolutely. But it's like the synthesis is important. And I think
Yeah,
that's going to be my big lesson. The synthesis of whatever you're doing, the synthesis is important. You're not going to
yeah,
get anywhere when you're stuck in one quadrant. If you're like, if you're a magical thinker 100% of the time, you'll go insane. If you're a religious thinker 100% of the time, you'll become a demagogue. If you're a scientific thinker 100% of the time, you're going to excuse a lot of data because it makes you uncomfortable,
right.
but you can't even address the uncomfortable
Yeah,
nature of things. If you're an artist, you may be a little too whimsical to fix the toilet. So
right.
it's a got to keep
It's a
the mind
balancing act.
got to keep the mind limber. You got a lot of tools in your mental toolbox. Got to keep the mind limber and got to use the right tool at the right time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think all of that is very appropriate and a good message to maybe close out with.
I do.
Yeah,
That no, that's a good one. Yeah. I think we solved a major mystery. We've had a lot to say.
yeah, we
So
did.
yeah, that
Yeah,
was a good one.
we've taken a good hard look at ourselves in the shiny buttocks of Mothman, and
Yes. Had to confront what was revealed there.
yeah,
Well, thank you again for having me on the show. I know it's been a while since we talked about doing this. I'm really glad we finally got to.
yeah, man. I'm really glad to have you on. As far as my listeners go, if is there anywhere you'd like them to come yell at you online? Because I mean,
They can
we
they can
originally met on Twitter, and that's
We
not really
originally
a
met
thing
on
anymore.
Twitter. I have decamped to Blue Sky because Twitter is like, come on, man.
Yeah,
Um, it's ridiculous. If you want, I will give you some show notes later. If they want to read my two papers on my blog after that were published in like 2023 and I haven't written anything in 2 years. I'm gonna maybe after I finish the masters, but
yeah, okay,
I'll send that over because I can't even remember the URL of my own blog right now. But people can just go and holler at me on Blue Sky.
okay, all
That's
right,
where I'm at.
all right.
All
Sounds
right.
great.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, man.
Hey, thank you.